heard all the positives of what they do. Give me a negative about Caleb Williams, a negative about Jayden Daniels, and a negative about Drake Maye from you watching them.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think you look at the upside of all those players, and it's all pretty good. And they're certainly the best available of what's going on in this year's draft. But we'll start with Caleb Williams there at the top. Had a phenomenal year a couple seasons ago in 2022. Just a ton of production, great decision-making, was accurate, distributed the football. And that kind of took a step back this year a little bit. He was a little jittery in the pocket. He would try to hold the football 6, 7, 8 seconds, trying to desperately make things happen at times. And we've also seen some of the maturity issues with him writing, fun little 4-letter words and on his fingernails and on his knuckles for certain high-profile games. So part of what the concern is about Caleb Williams is he ready to be the franchise quarterback? Can he walk in and have the maturity, but also can he sit in the pocket and throw on time with accuracy and make good decisions when the picture's changing mightily in front of him? That's going to be evaluated between now and draft day. He certainly has the capacity to do that, but that's going to be one of the things that myself and others have concerns about. Looking at Jayden Daniels, you look at him on the hoof, he's 6'4", but he's really thin. He does an outstanding job, Zolak, of getting on the outside edge and delivering the football accurately, but he can put the ball in jeopardy at times, and he puts his body in jeopardy at times. So how durable is Jayden Daniels going to be in the NFL? He's got some escapability. We know that he can extend and create with his legs, but he puts himself in harm's way at times, and with his build, you're just not going to be able to do that in the NFL and do it consistently. And I think when you look at the other kid, Drake Maye, a lot of people think that he was going to be the next Justin Herbert that was going to come out. Big, strong, 6'4", big Scott Zolak-looking mug throwing the football back there. A ton of arm strength. But when you looked at what it is he did this year behind a porous offensive line, he made bad decisions, and he just turned the ball over too much. So he forced balls or just made the wrong read at times, and he didn't have a whole lot to work with. So part of that could be attributed to the fact that he's just trying to make things happen. But those are the things that separate the good from the great and the great from the elite. So it's not just about scouting, and this whole process is not about what a dude can do. It's about what a dude might be able to do. Evaluating intrinsically and authentically and objectively what a person can do and what they can't do is at the heart of scouting. So your question about what the downsides are and what fans should look for as these guys enter the league is really on point, because it tends to hold the key to success or not.
So we pretty much assume Caleb Williams will go with the number 1 pick, and then it's down to will it be Jayden Daniels or will it be Drake Maye by the time the Patriots pick at 3. Which of those two guys in your mind has that higher ceiling and down the road could really be a great quarterback?
Well, you look on the hoof and you think it's Drake Maye. You think a starter in a year or two, and for my money, early on, that's Jayden Daniels. Jayden Daniels does so many things that you appreciate. He's able to recognize pre-snap pressures and diagnose and direct protections, and he seems to have a complete command of the offense. And considering he's been a 4-year starter, played in a couple different systems with different terminology and those sort of things, I really like Daniels' ability to step into a franchise wherever it is, pick things up quickly, and let his talents take over. His decision-making was good. And, of course, he was throwing to Neighbors, which is the best receiver in this draft, arguably, besides Marvin Harrison Jr. But he has the wherewithal, in my opinion, to be able to extend and create mobility. And what we've seen, even with prototypical 6'4", 230-pound quarterbacks like a Josh Allen, mobility is key. The creatures coming off the outside edge are a factor. And if you can't elude and extend, you're going to have issues. And that's why I think he's got a slight favorite in terms of upside than what we're seeing with Drake Maye, who's got all the physical tools, but the critical tool of decision-making and accuracy, which just isn't about where to throw the ball. It's also when to throw that football. That processor was a little bit slower in the tape that I watched on Drake Maye, and that's why I like Jayden Daniels ahead of him.
Yeah, that's the way it's starting to feel. I'm talking with Aaron Taylor, CBS College Sports. And, Aaron, when you came out, highly drafted, number 1 pick out of Notre Dame, you went to the Packers. And the interesting thing is Belichick's not making this pick. It's going to be Elliott Wolf. And you had Ron Wolf there in Green Bay. But your team was kind of put together. You played with Brett Favre. You had receivers. You need about 8 different guys
on offense to be successful here. The way Elliott has been brought up, can you see him moving that pick, sliding back based on what the 49ers had to give up to go get Trey Lance? We get a big bunch of picks here if we slide back. Do you see him
it's
sliding?
Interesting. Well, his dad, proved that he wasn't afraid to slide and move. In fact, he traded up 4 spots with Miami the year I came out in the 94 draft to take me because offensive linemen started coming off the board. So that worked out in the long run, but not early on with my 2 ruptured patella tendons. But he's seen the whole cycle. He's seen what it means to bring in a quality free agent like a Reggie White, to be able to bring in a Brett Favre, a kid that's got all the tools but just needed a new environment to finally settle in. There's so many issues on the offensive side of the ball that you would think that the quarterback, based on the way Mac Jones played, would be an area of interest. This isn't a particularly strong draft for the quarterback position. There's guys that are draftable, but not guys that you want to base the tenure that's following arguably one of the better head coaches in the sport of football in its history with Gerard Mayo and Elliott Wolf. So they're extremely focused on what they're going to do, and I think there's going to be some movement. I think they have some leverage there, and because there's not a for sure thing at that quarterback, maybe you create some value and fill some of the other holes that you have on the offensive side of the ball.
Who's the best? Who's the top 2 tackles in your mind? Like, you hear Alt's name, but the kid from Penn State, you put him up there?
I like Fashanu. He's super athletic. He's got a great punch and strike. His timing's really good, and he just seemed to have a knack for getting to the point of inflection and forcing defenders to go one direction or another. So I really like what he brings to the table from that standpoint. And you have to like the kid out of Alabama and what he brings to the table. There's some really good offensive linemen, particularly on the interior side, not necessarily a tackle, but Joe Alt's a guy that's rapidly climbing the boards from Notre Dame. And you look at him in his stance, and he's got a really forward lean. There's something about his ability to bend that doesn't necessarily translate. And that can get him in troubles at times when he's coming out of his hips and lunging forward or bending at the waist to keep a lower pad level. But he's a true run blocker. He's got some skills to get to the next level. In his pass sets, he's a technician, and he's not afraid to throw his hands. So from that standpoint, I think Joe Alt's a guy to keep an eye on that could rapidly move up the boards.
Aaron, it appears there's a lot of talent in this first round, but does it extend beyond that? Is this a deep draft or is it top-heavy?
Well, I think it's top-heavy at particular positions, right? Like the wide receiver position. I think this has a chance to be one of those drafts where we look back and go, holy moly, where there's some dudes that can go out and get it. You've got some good interior defensive linemen, not as many creatures off the outside edge, so there's some depth and some abilities to be able to get guys there. And then I think there's going to be some late-round running backs that can come in and contribute where a team doesn't have to spend a whole lot of money and a whole lot of draft powder to be able to bring them in their system and have them contribute maybe first on special teams, maybe sporadically sparing whoever's going to be the starter, and get a guy that can come in and be a 5-6 year play for you and help you win ball games. So it's a really interesting year, and I think this process and what we're going to see in the combine after the interviews, which are critical, after the medical exams and looking at what it is they are on the hook and what their injury history is, I think we'll start to get a much better feel about what we can expect as we go into the fall of next year once these guys get drafted. But as I look at this draft, it's really top-heavy with wide receivers. There's teams that desperately need quarterbacks. There's a ton of interesting storylines, and I think we're going to see a lot of draft day and pre-draft trades, especially with free agency here about to heat up.
It's Aaron Taylor, CBS Sports, also here today to tell us about his latest involvement with Future Fans. It's a game launched by 2 entrepreneurs, football fans, as a way to explain and engage young kids in the rules of football. Tell us all about this.
Dude, well, I'm about anything that promotes the sport of football, so I'm excited to share something that's allowed me to connect with my daughter over football in a super fun and creative way, and you mentioned it, called Future Fans. Now, my problem was my daughter equates football with daddy being away in the fall, so she doesn't like it and would reject it. So when I would try to get her to sit on the couch and watch a game with me, and God forbid I tried to start to explain the rules, her eyes would roll back in her head, and out would come the Barbies and the unicorns and the gymnastics mats. So Future Fans is a innovative brand that reimagines how kids learn sports by making it fun and easy, embedding the rules and concepts in really creative ways in a storybook-led experience. So we play a ring toss game. There's 4 rings, 4 bean bags. You have 4 chances to get a bean bag inside the next ring. If you do it, you get to advance to that ring, and you have 4 more tries to get a bean bag into the next ring. And that's the concept, obviously, to introduce the concept of having 4 tries to get a first down or make the yard to gain. So for us, it's been a really great and creative way to read a story, play games, connect, but on the down low, introduce football to her. So I think why it works is it meets kids where they're at. It speaks to them in a language that they understand, and that's having fun and playing some games. So truth be told, I wish these dudes would write a book and create a game about how to keep my dang mouth shut with my wife so I don't end up in the dang doghouse all the time. But maybe that's coming down the line.
That's funny. You intertwined cornhole and football. I love it. Real quick here, last question. I know we're up against it. NFL Players Association, they do this survey now every year, and the game's changed since you and I played, obviously. Patriots graded out poorly from a family standpoint, F-, how families are treated, and the weight room did not score well again. How good was your weight room at Green Bay?
It was adequate. It was serviceable. We had a racquetball court that was good, but we were out in the middle of nowhere, and this was before the days of these venues being entertainment venues and having multi-purposes. So we had to bring chefs in. We had to bring guys that cut hair from Milwaukee to make it work, but we certainly didn't have a nursery. But if we did, boys, I would load it with Future Fans games where fans can find it for $59.99 on Amazon, or go to futurefans.com. Put the word in fans for a discount promo code, which is 15% for all the D linemen out there. That saves you about $9. You won't regret it. Check it out, Future Fans.
Aaron, appreciate your time.
Thanks, fellas.
Thanks, Aaron.
Take care.